Hey everybody, what's up? It's Dave. It's October. I'm not in my garage. Instead, I'm in the basement of my house. And this morning's little project is to give my furnace a little fall tune-up and get it ready for the upcoming winter season. So let's jump right into it. Alright, so here's my boiler. It runs absolutely perfect. Have no issues with it whatsoever. I've been here now for 2 years. And a buddy of mine asked me when the last time I tuned it up, and I said I never have, and he looked kind of surprised and said, you better get on that. So I bought a little kit with some parts, some filters, and a nozzle, and we're going to do a little quick tune-up on this thing. This has got the Riello Burner 40. It's a Buderus Logan G115. It's got a nice Logomatic controller on the top. And the thing runs flawless. You know, and it does some work. I got 5 zones here. And there's my oil tank and the oil filter down below. So I think I'm going to start over at the oil tank and just work my way over here. I've got a filter for the cartridge over at the tank. I've got a screen for the burner and a new nozzle. And then we'll open up the boiler door and clean out the boiler. Take a peek at it, see what it looks like. So here's what I got for parts for it. I've got a filter for the cartridge over at the tank. I've got a screen that goes into the burner, just like another screen filter for the heating oil. I've got a new nozzle, and I got a brush to clean out the actual boiler itself. And that's what I've got for a quick little tune-up. Again, I'm having no issues at all with this thing. So let's just keep it that way. You know me, I love to do maintenance. So let's start at the tank and install this filter. Alright, first things first, got the white filter that's going to go in here. We need to close this valve. Great. Step number 1. Can't shut that valve off. I don't know if it's broken or not, but let's loosen up this cartridge and see if it pours out or not. Alright, well that's good news. It's not draining the whole tank. So maybe that valve is at least closed enough. Okay, that's good. Here's the filter. And that doesn't look too bad, actually. Alright, that looks like I'm going to want to clean this up a little bit. Let's clean that up a little bit before we put it back on. And there we are. That looks pretty good. Alright, here's our new filter. Goes in like that. Our gasket. Let's get some oil on it. Nice and snug. We don't have to crank it. Let's open this. Got a bleeder hole on the top here because there's air trapped in there. I'm going to open this, let the air bleed out until oil starts coming out of there, and then I'll tighten it down. There we go. Took a while, but now it's flowing out of there. Now we'll just tighten this thing down gently. Now let's move on to the boiler. Alright, so I'm at the burner here now. Of course, I've got the power killed to it, so this thing is completely off. Here's the oil coming in. And we need to get in here. There's another filter screen in here, and there's the nozzle in here. So here's the fuel comes in. There's a pump in here. We get low pressure coming in here, gravity fed through the pump, and then over here to high pressure, which feeds the nozzle. And there is a screen in here that I want to replace. So let me close this. Okay, I think that's shut off. We're going to find out soon enough. These are Allen wrenches, Allen keys. So let me go get a set of Allen keys to get this cap off. Alright, let me get my tray under here. I'm not exactly sure how much fuel is going to come out of there, but this is a 4mm. Alright, not sure which way this valve works. I want to know this so when I get it back together again. Alright, so when this handle is completely loose, what do we got here? This handle pushes down on a collar in there that opens the valve. Alright, now I can take this thing completely off. Ah. 2, 3, 4, they're all the same size. Alright, so here's the screen in here. A little bit of debris in there, not too bad, I guess. I don't know, I've never really looked into one of these before. But let's get this screen out. Okay, there's stuff in there. And there's stuff in here too. Okay, so that's nice and clean. There's a cork gasket in here that I want to replace. That's that. I'm also going to kind of wipe this surface here. And this is a fuel pump. So low pressure fuel comes in through the pump and comes out high pressure, which heads to the nozzle. There's a bleeder screw here that we're going to use to get all the air now that we've introduced into it out. Plus there's probably air from over by the tank when we open that up. We'll bleed all the air out so we get a good solid stream of fuel. Alright, that looks good. Let me go grab the new screen. Okay, here's our new screen with new filter. I don't want to drop it in this tray. And so this is going to go like that. Okay, this kit comes with an O-ring and a cork gasket. The one I took off had only the cork gasket, but I can see where this O-ring goes. So I'm going to put this O-ring in here. And then the cork gasket. Alright, so here we are. We've got the O-ring underneath the cork gasket. The cork gasket, I went back on the video, and this orientation goes in like this. And then we'll get these screws started. Okay. So that is a fuel filter screen in here to catch anything that would somehow get past the white filter over by the tank, and you just keep stuff out of the nozzle. Alright. So far so good. Okay, next step is we've got to get the nozzle out and take a look at that and clean that up. Actually, I'm going to replace the nozzle. It lives under here. So this cover comes off. There's some more brains in here. Okay, so we'll set that aside. And now we want to take this cover off right here, and another screw under here. Okay, these two screws look like this. Set those aside, and now this cap comes off. And here's the electrodes, the igniter, and the nozzle is in here. But the nozzle is going to come out with this high pressure line, so we got to disconnect the line. Alright, so the high pressure line that goes to the nozzle has to be removed. Like so. And then we have a screw right here, which comes out. And now the nozzle should be able to come out. And it does. And we're going to let some fuel drip out. And there's the nozzle that we're going to replace. And we're going to clean this thing up. So let's get this thing all cleaned up. Alright, so here we are back in our comfortable garage. We're going to do a little work on this unit. This is the nozzle with the electrodes. And as you can see, it could use some cleaning. So I'm going to separate the nozzle from the rest of this thing by this screw here. Someone's been in here several times and destroyed that Phillips screw. So I'm going to just kind of bite it with some dikes. Break it loose that way. That's the screw I'm loosening right there. Let's get you closer. And now with this screw loose, this nozzle, okay, yep, this nozzle should come out. And that screw centers the whole nozzle in the precise location with that little divot there. So there's no adjustment. I'm not moving any adjustments. Alright, so I'm going to set the nozzle aside and focus on this area. So we've got two electrodes right here that jump the spark to light this whole thing. They're filthy. I want to clean those up, as well as cleaning this whole plate, which I think helps swirl the air that's coming through. So the air gets swirled through these blades, and then the nozzle shoots out a swirl of fuel. So the whole thing is like a tornado in there, and then these electrodes jump and ignite the whole thing. Alright, so I want to clean this thing up. I'm just going to use some carbon choke cleaner. See if this, and a little wire brush. And then a little compressed air. That's better. I'm going to do a little more wire brushing here. It's a little softer, kind of a nylon brush, so I don't do any damage. Just make sure all the blades are clean so we get a good air swirl. And that looks pretty good there. Here's an adjustment that I don't want to tamper with. I haven't, anything that I've removed now is not an adjustment at all. Because there is an adjustment to where these igniters are, whatever you want to call them, electrodes. They have to be positioned in a particular spot in relation to the nozzle to be a certain distance ahead of the nozzle and above the nozzle and a certain distance apart. And I don't want to tamper with any of that, and I have not. So that looks nice. Now let's replace the nozzle itself. So I'll set this aside. Alright, let's just clean up the outside of this nozzle. Okay, and there's the nozzle I'm going to replace right there. This is a specific size, 0.85, 60-degree B. So that nozzle sprays out a 60-degree fan. 0.85 is probably the jet size. So it puts out a nice cone that swirls at 60 degrees, and then the fans, blades over there, when the air blows through, also swirls. So I'm going to grab a wrench here and take this nozzle off. Alright, now I want to remove the nozzle tip off of this assembly. So we've got a 3/4 inch, we'll grab it here, and then a 5/8, grab it here. And here it comes out. And there is the old nozzle. A little carb cleaner in there. Some compressed air. Nice and clean. Now we're going to put our, get this thing out of the way, we're going to put our new nozzle in. Be somewhat careful not to touch the copper filter or brass, whatever it is. I don't think you want to touch that with your fingers to contaminate it, but I'll just slide it in like this. Oh, no gaskets, or no washers, like this. That should be plenty tight enough. So there we go. Is that focused? All right, beautiful. So now let's reassemble the nozzle section with the body of it with our clean electrodes, our clean blade fan blades. And so now this goes in like so. Can only go in one way. Again, that screw with the dimple. I'll tighten this screw and it will self-center the whole thing. And there we have it. Beautiful. Brand new nozzle, nice clean electrodes, nice clean fan blades. And now we can go back and install this in the furnace. Alright, here we are back at the furnace. We've got our rebuilt nozzle assembly. And we're going to slide it back in place. Get a little bit of light on the subject here. There we go. That's a nice click fit there. And the screw that secures this in. Like so. We're going to attach the fuel line. Tighten the fuel line fitting down. Nice and tight. Okay, still going to need to bleed the air out of this. I am going to do that the last thing. Next thing I want to do, I think, is to open up the boiler and see what it looks like in there and clean things out in there. Alright, again, furnace is off. It's been off for a while. It is used to heat the water, so I'm sure the boiler itself is still warm, but I think it's okay. I'm going to get in here, I'm going to take this cover off. And then we're going to loosen these two bolts. And it looks like the hinges are over here, so this thing should swing out this way. Hopefully I won't have to disconnect this. Well, we'll see. I'll get these two bolts off and we'll see if I can swing this door open, or do I have to disconnect these hard lines. I think I'm going to have to disconnect this. But let's see. First things first. I'm going to disconnect this fuel line because I don't like the way that it bends. Okay. Now I can swing the door open without stressing out the fuel lines. This will be my first peek inside this thing, see what it looks like. Oh yeah. I don't know if that's good or bad. It doesn't look bad, but I don't know what it's supposed to look like other than we're going to clean it up. Alright, so here's the first peek inside the boiler. Looks like it could use a little cleaning. We're going to get in here with some brushes and a vacuum, and we'll clean this whole thing out. But I think the service log on it, last entry was 2017, this is 2023. So all things considered, that's not too bad, but we're going to make it look really nice before we close it back up. Alright, let's see how easy this stuff comes out. Okay, here we are, a little bit of scraping, a little bit of brushing, a little bit of vacuuming. And it's much better. It's hard to chisel that stuff off of there, but I think it's fairly clean. And I'm good. So we're going to close this thing up. And put her back together. Alright, now we got it all cleaned up inside. Let's close things up. We'll rehook up the fuel line, purge the air out of it. That's next. Okay, the next thing is to reconnect the fuel line. Don't go crazy, that should be good. Let's open up the fuel, check for leaks. So far so good. Alright, so I let this connection sit for a few minutes. No leakage at all. It's fine. Now we need to purge the air that we've let in there since I opened it up. So I'm going to double check all my work. Everything's in here and tight. And these electrodes go in here. That locks on like that. Okay, here's a bleeder screw. I'm going to get a jar, crack that loose, and bleed the air out of it. Okay, so now I want to purge any air that might have gotten in here. Going to power up the furnace. Typically the fan will blow for about 20 seconds to clear out any fumes that might be in the boiler. So I got 20 seconds before it actually tries to light. And I will crack this bleeder open, look for a steady stream, and then lock it down. Alright, got a good steady stream of fuel. Okay, so we bled the whole fuel system. Now the last thing I want to put on is this cover for the fan shroud. It covers up the electrodes and it's part of the fan shroud. We should be good. Just double check that everything's tight. And it is. Alright, let's get this diesel fuel out of the way. So let's light this candle and see what happens. Alright, get the lid up. Yeah, they think for business. Trying to make sure we don't have any leaks. Seems good. We'll shut it off, put the covers back on. So here we are, got all the covers back on, everything's working great, it fires right up, it's quiet. Again, I wasn't having any issues with it, but this is the first oil burning furnace I've ever had. My last one was a gas furnace. So a buddy of mine told me I should clean this thing annually. So I got a filter for the oil tank, I got a filter screen for the burner. I put a new nozzle on it. I cleaned the whole boiler cavity. And so everything should be nice and clean and working nice and efficiently until next year. So appreciate you hanging out with me for that little job. That was kind of fun. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.